Aloha, welcome to the Mr.G podcast. Today is December 14th, 2023. Welcome you all. We're going to be talking NBA hoops today. It is early. It's 5:30, 5:51 a.m. It's a warm it's a cold 70 degrees here in Hawaii. It's freezing when it's 70 degrees in Hawaii. And it's windy. There's a gale wind advisory across the islands here. I'm coming to you from downtown Honolulu, Chinatown, Palama area. Welcome. We're going to be talking about NBA hoops and a few other things later this week. We're going to be talking about some things about outer space. Yesterday's podcast, we went over the Orion constellation and, in particular, the star Betelgeuse. Also, going to go into a topic that I like to call the placebo effect. That's what I like to call it, the placebo effect. And I remember during the first season of the Mr.G podcast, if you're wondering what you're listening to the Mr.G podcast. It's available wherever you get your podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, and full episodes of the Mr.G podcast are uploaded in their entirety to Twitter and YouTube as well. So, on the first season of the Mr.G podcast, I did a clip. I have an AI generator, so I put every episode into this AI generator, and it creates clips for me to upload on TikTok and YouTube or whatever. And I had a clip from one episode during season one of me talking about how a monk was able to move a like 2,000 pound bell with just the power of his mind, just by going up to the bell, not touching the bell, but just coming up to the bell. And there was a lot of comments that said, "Oh, that's not possible. That's uh, you know, um, that's bullshit." But then I started thinking about the placebo effect, and there is no scientific explanation for the placebo effect, and it's something that backs up what I was talking about with the monk being able to move the bell, the power of the mind, and that's exactly what the placebo effect is. Uh, you know, cancer patients have been cured by a pill that's not a magical pill, but they're told it's a magical pill. It's really just a sugar pill. And with the power of their mind, they're able to defeat that terminal illness. And it happens with numerous things. And I believe the placebo effect can be applied to everyday life as well. But we're not talking about that today. We're going to be talking about the NBA, the, the, the National Basketball Association. All right, there were 20 games into the season. So there's an 82 game season. This NBA season is unlike any other season that I've ever watched before, and I've been watching the NBA for 35 years. This season is different for many reasons. You have two of the most interesting, dominant rookies that have come into the league in a long time, and they have strikingly similar attributes. I'm talking about the two candidates for Rookie of the Year this year. We have Chet Holmgren of the Oklahoma City Thunder and Victor Wembanyama of the San Antonio Spurs, my team, was born and raised at South Texas in San Antonio and Kerrville, Texas. Went to school in Austin, Texas at the University of Texas. But the San Antonio Spurs have the number one draft pick of the previous draft, Victor Wembanyama, and he's just a highlight reel. It's just awesome watching him play. It's great for the NBA to have a player like that. He dribbles between his legs. He does crossovers. He pulls ups and does fadeaway three-pointers. And he's 7'5". So that's fun to watch. It's interesting when he dunks. He has to watch out not hitting his head on the rim. And then, so he's came into the league before he ever played a game in the NBA. They were using his picture and he was, the poster boy is every ESPN story. Victor Wembanyama, Victor Wembanyama. And what you didn't hear too much about was Chet Holmgren of the Oklahoma City Thunder. And Chet Holmgren, he's not 7'5", but he's like 7'2", and he can also take his man off the dribble. He can also shoot fadeaway three-pointers. So, like I said, the similarities in their game is unbelievable. They're both considered rookies because Chet Holmgren sat out his first season with an injury. So this is both their rookie year, and it's going to be known as one of the most competitive rookie of the year campaigns for each individual. The San Antonio Spurs have one of the worst records in the NBA. 20 games into the season, a quarter way into the season, and they have 3 wins. Two of those wins came against the Phoenix Suns in October. So the Spurs haven't won since Halloween. We're heading, it's a week and a half before Christmas. And, like I said, Victor Wembanyama is awesome, but they're not a good team, and the players around him don't really know how to play with a player of that magnitude. And not just his star magnitude, like he's so tall, they don't know where to put the ball at times. And watching them play at the beginning of the season, I set out to watch every Spurs game like I did growing up in Texas. But I stopped doing that and I decided to watch other games just because the Spurs are very hard to watch. They play very unorganized. You don't know if they're a defensive team, if they're a fast break team. Victor Wembanyama runs the break really well. It seems like there's some tension between him and Vassell. I believe Vassell signed a long-term contract with the Spurs. And in this season, it looks like the Spurs are going to get a good draft pick. They need a point guard. They've been using Jeremy Sohan as their point guard as an experiment that hasn't been working well. Jeremy Sohan's a great player. He's a great defensive player. He went to Baylor University. He's a very interesting player. He shoots free throws with one hand. That's one thing I like watching the Spurs, is Jeremy Sohan. So I hope they keep Jeremy Sohan and Victor Wembanyama as the future. But Chet Holmgren is actually leading the way for Rookie of the Year. They both have similar numbers. Victor Wembanyama is leading the league in blocks right now, or he's tied, I believe, with about 3 blocks per game. Chet Holmgren doesn't average as many blocks, but he has a better field goal percentage because he doesn't take as many three-pointers as Victor Wembanyama. But like I said, in general, it's great watching these 7-foot players play with such grace. People that love the game of basketball. It's a very graceful, like artistic sport, the way that they move around. And watching these 7-foot players, 7'5", 7'2" players play with such skill and coordination is great for the NBA fan. So I will say that 20 games into the season, and it's been the most interesting, exciting first part of an NBA season that I've ever seen. Also, they had the first inaugural NBA Cup. Now, the NBA Cup is something new that they decided to have this year, which is a uh, um, round robin, not a round, it's a elimination tournament if you make it to the next round. And similar to how they do soccer games and soccer cups. And it was interesting. They played the semifinals and the finals in Las Vegas, so no team had home court advantage. But the teams that made the NBA Cup, the Lakers have a decent team. They have LeBron James and they have Anthony Davis. And, it's surprising LeBron is playing so well into his 21st season, and it's surprising that Anthony Davis hasn't gotten injured, a quarter way into the season. And to give them credit, they won the NBA Cup and they won it in a definitive way as well. Um, One thing that the casual NBA fan saw was how good Indiana is, the Indiana Pacers, and Halliburton is probably leading the league. He for MVP. They have one of the top 4 teams in the Eastern Conference, the Indiana Pacers. But Halliburton is leading the league in assists, and I believe he's like third or fourth in points at like 25 points a game. A lot of people don't know who he was. I did not know who he was before the FIBA tournament over the summer, but he was the starting point guard for the United States, and I saw how good he was and how he reminded me of Magic Johnson or George Gervin, even one of the old time Spurs. How long and lanky he is, and he does play kind of strange. He has a strange jump shot, but he's proving it on the court, and they have one of the best offensives in the league. They made it to the finals in the NBA Cup. They won the Eastern Conference. They upset Boston and they upset Milwaukee in big games. So a lot of people noticed that, the casual NBA fan. The Lakers played the conference. I don't know if you call it the finals, the Western Finals for the NBA Cup against the New Orleans Pelicans, which totally didn't show up for that game. And it was a nationally televised game. It was in Las Vegas. And just the body language before the tip even started, LeBron James and Anthony Davis were like dancing. They're like, yeah, like I was watching their body language, and the Pelicans were just like flat. And people like look at that game, they're like, oh, it's because Williamson was out of shape. And you look at it, and he was out of shape, and he had some wide open three-pointers, and LeBron James was guarding him, and LeBron James is 39 years old, and Zion Williamson is 23, 24 years old, 25 maybe. And it was a very the one of the strangest games I've ever seen. The Lakers won by 40 points. The New Orleans Pelicans had a really good starting five, but they just didn't come to play. And there was something sketchy about it too, because before even the opening tip, you could see that the game was over before it even started. And yeah, Zion Williamson looked out of shape. That's supposed to be the future of the NBA, but I guess he's just not really into it. And right now they have the 10th best record in the Western Conference, the tough Western Conference. So for them to have made it that far, I guess that was good enough for them. There are much better teams in the West, and better teams in the East than Indiana as well. But in the final, and better teams than the Lakers in the West. But in the finals in the NBA Cup, we had the Lakers versus the Pacers. Very strange. I don't know. Maybe the NBA is rigged, but that was a very strange NBA Cup. I'm looking forward to next year's NBA Cup. I think the better teams, the upper echelon teams in both conferences are going to come to play and take it more seriously than they did this year. And with that being said, what are the top teams in the West and what are the top teams in the East? In my opinion, the top teams in the West, in no particular order, but you got to put Denver right up there at the top. The NBA champions. Nikola Jokic is one of the best players in the NBA. I think he's leading the league in rebounds and in the top five in points, field goal percentage, blocks, three-pointers made. So you got to put Denver at the top. Dallas is also one of the tops. Luka Doncic is playing as at an MVP level. He's got to be one of the top three candidates for MVP. Oklahoma City Thunder. I mentioned them earlier with Chet Holmgren. If Chet Holmgren wins Rookie of the Year, it's going to be because he's on one of the top teams in Oklahoma City. He's playing well as his MVP candidate teammate SGA, Shea Gilgeous Alexander. And he's a very interesting player. He's like a fashion model, and he's kind of quiet. He doesn't like, isn't very the loudest guy in the room. But he's a great player, and he's a great point guard. He's probably him and Halliburton are the two best point guards in the NBA right now. So right there in the top three, I got Oklahoma City, um, Denver, Dallas. The West is packed with all really good teams. I don't want to say the Lakers yet, but you got to just say no particular order from there. Lakers, Clippers. I know I'm leaving somebody out. Oh, of course, Minnesota is leading the Western Conference right now. They're above everybody, so you got to put them as the top four. So top four in the West: Minnesota, Denver, Dallas. Those are a good top three: Minnesota, Denver, Dallas. Four, I'll go with Oklahoma City. Five, that's where it gets a little shady. Those could go anywhere. Five, Lakers, you gotta think are gonna make it. Six, Clippers, you gotta think are gonna make it. They have 3 stars, they have 4 stars, they have 4 former MVP candidates, and a Finals MVP in Kawhi Leonard. They have Russell Westbrook. They have James Harden. They have Paul George. There's no reason why the Clippers should not make the playoffs at least. So you got to give them that. Who else do we have in the West? Um, Portland is a lottery team. San Antonio is a lottery team. Houston started off the season really well. I guess I would put them as a possible play-in. Phoenix has three great players. Phoenix is definitely going to be in the playoffs, a top eight team. Somebody's going to get left out. Then you have Golden State as well. The Golden State Warriors, they just lost Draymond Green for an indefinite amount of time. A lot of people are the Golden State Warriors are the most polarizing team in the NBA. You either love them or you hate them, and I'm pretty much on the latter side. Um, Even though they're polarizing, I'm pretty much on the latter side. That's a pretty strong word to say you hate the Warriors, but I'm not a fan of Draymond Green. I was a fan of Rasheed Wallace when he played, but Rasheed Wallace wasn't like a dirty player. Like I've seen Draymond Green just like he acts like his excuse is like, oh, I'm just that defensive player that just flings his arms and legs around, and I just happen to kick guys in the balls and punch them in the face. You know, uh, like Rasheed Wallace was led the league in technicals. He has the NBA record for most technicals in a season. He played on the Detroit Pistons and on the Trailblazers in the 90s and early 2000s. And Rasheed Wallace is one of the favorite players of NBA history. He coined the phrase "ball don't lie." So what "ball don't lie" means is like if the ref called a foul on me and I'm playing defense on somebody and the ref calls a foul on me and I'm like, hey, I don't agree with that call. And the guy goes to the free throw line and he shoots the free throw and then he misses the free throw. That's when I would say, hey, ball don't lie, ball don't lie. And Rasheed Wallace came up with that because he would always get like technical foul calls and this and that. And when that would happen, he would say, ball don't lie. But Rasheed Wallace is a complete different player than the current Draymond Green. So having their names in the same conversation, they're both controversial players. But Draymond Green is controversial because of his antics on the court and putting other players in jeopardy and with their safety. Just on I can think of just the major instances of his career. That was when he kicked the New Zealand player on Oklahoma City Thunder and the Balls. What's his name? I forget that guy's name. But I had a kind of a rough morning feeding the cats. I won't go into detail, but I had a 4.5 mornings, 5 years now of feeding the cats every day. It was just nothing like today. But so maybe I should have poured the coffee. But some more of Draymond's career though. Draymond Green, not the uh, not the best past uh, history of sportsmanship in the NBA, and that goes back to kicking players in the balls on accident, supposedly, um, punching players in the face on purpose and on accident. There was an incident in the 2015 NBA Finals when he accidentally punched LeBron James in the balls. Um, and it's been occurring over and over. He just a couple weeks ago he had a 5-game suspension when the Warriors were playing the Timberwolves and he got Rudy Gobert in a headlock. Um, and so there's a lot of people. I've seen some highlight reels. People take all the highlights of all the different Draymond Green instances and he's about 33, 34 years old. Has always been on the Warriors. I can't picture him on any other team, but do you think he would be as successful on any other team? Because he has always played with great players around him, with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, and they've had a great coach in Steve Kerr. So I really don't think Draymond Green would have been as successful if he had been drafted into any other team. It seems like he fits that offense and he's the bad guy. He's the does the dirty work. But in also doing that, he's always tried to been like the alpha. And it seems like a lot of times in press conferences and on the court, he just has to be the center of attention, and he has to take the limelight from Steph Curry or Klay Thompson. And so even in that, that must put Steph Curry at a strange position, especially when Kevin Durant comes there, and that whole incident with Draymond Green just making Kevin Durant just not feel welcome, and telling him like just out in public, calling him out, and being an expert at nonverbal communication. I see a lot of these things where you can't like hear what they're saying, but you see the body language, and you see 90% of communication is nonverbal, and you see the gestures, and how Draymond just has to be the number one dog. And so a lot of his teammates probably don't say it, but he's probably not the best teammate to have, and a lot of them would probably want to see him on another team. And the other team wouldn't necessarily welcome him with open arms as well. That's why he's always played in Golden State, because if he has to be the alpha, if he's got traded to another team, if Draymond gets traded to the Dallas Mavericks, you think Luka Doncic is really going to want him like going there and just trying to like do what he did to Steph Curry or what he did to Kevin Durant? Probably not. So, hey, if he doesn't, if Draymond doesn't make it on the Golden State Warriors, he'll be on another team, and he'll probably come off the bench, and there won't ever be another All-Star appearance. And within the next couple years, he'll be playing on the Shanghai Sharks. But yeah, it's been an interesting NBA season. I told him top teams in the West. That's the hard one. Top team in the East is a little bit easier. You got Milwaukee Bucks. Um, Giannis, the Greek freak, he had 64 points last night. I saw in some highlights. Then they have Damian Lillard, and they have a few other good players. They have a third All-Star. I forgot his name. But also the Philadelphia 76ers with Joel Embiid, and Maxey is playing at an All-Star level. It seems like they just want to be in it, and also the Boston Celtics. Those are definitely the top three teams in the Eastern Conference. I'd say Boston makes it to the NBA Finals with the addition of Kristaps Porzingis. They gave away for a lot for him. They gave away Smart and a few other players, but Kristaps Porzingis is playing well in their system, and they also have two All-Stars with Jason Tatum and Brown as well. So. I'd say you got to put the Celtics in the NBA Finals again. The West, it could be whoever plays best in the playoffs. I could see Dallas making it. I could see um, the Lakers possibly making it. I could see Denver being the favorite to make it. So yeah, those are my takes on the NBA season so far. And I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. Actually, I don't care. I do it every day for me, and just like I feed the cats as well. But thank you guys for listening. And Mr. G podcast available wherever you get your podcast. So I believe Apple Podcasts is number one for the Mr. G Hawaii podcast. Look it up, Gregory Brandt podcast. And full episodes are uploaded in their entirety on Twitter and YouTube, twitter.com, Gregory Brandt, and youtube.com, Mr. G Live. All right, everybody have a great day.